Yes, sir, it's visible now.
No, quiz marks. Have you seen?
Yeah, it's open now.
It's open. Okay. One issue I have found for that question where I asked you to write the name of the book, which actually dealt with the concept of externality. Many of you, most of you have written it correctly, but the fact is that actually you have given some additional information which was not required. I required the name of the book, not the year of publication, not the author's name. So that's why these things are not accepted by the system. But of course, for the first time, I probably can accept that. So in that case, maybe for those students who have given right answer to that question, so the marks will go up by one. But overall, as I told many times beforehand, before this class, the performance average percentage, average mark is around 4.5, and the standard deviation is also relatively high. So probably you will be able to do it better in the next few quizzes. Another thing, we probably have to have some kind of additional classes. In a sense, I'll not be available again tomorrow and day after because of certain official duty. So what I'll try to do, I'll try to send you some materials which you should go through. So basically that is on kind of open access resources, the issues of tragedy of commons. So those things I'll be sending it to you. You should go through them. Once I'm back in the next week, so we can again start discussion on that. I believe that is fine with you.
So can you please upload the material on the Teams channel because we are not like a few of students are not receiving the mails.
Okay. So then I have to do that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for the suggestion. Yeah. I'll do that. I'll do that. So regarding the class that we had actually discussed about in the previous class, we were discussing about the exhaustible resources, basically the distinction between exhaustible resources and renewable resources, and also the issues of kind of management for exhaustible resources. We tried to have a look at that, and we found that actually in the case of exhaustible resources, there is a question of opportunity cost which needs to be taken into consideration. And if that is taken into consideration, the conventional condition for optimal extraction of the natural resource or maybe optimal utilization of any goods and services that gets kind of modified. We instead of price being equivalent to marginal cost, as is the case in normal or ordinary situation, so this will be price becoming equivalent to augmented marginal cost, where this augmented marginal cost will be just a combination of marginal cost of extraction and the user cost or opportunity cost of extracting the resource today. So that way, in fact, I modified a little, and we tried to see it, okay, with reference to two different time periods. And while looking into that, also we found that the conditions more or less remain same. And of course, the second order condition, second means another second condition for optimal depletion is also derived with the help of the equations frame. And those things are already available with you. In today's class, would like to go to the renewable resources. Of course, I was planning to give you some kind of quantitative derivation of the condition that I'll definitely try to give you. Probably not maybe in the class, maybe in the form of the materials which you can go through that will help you understanding the issues of exhaustible resources. Now, insofar as these renewable resources are concerned, we have already seen that the line dividing the exhaustible resources and renewable resources is not always clearly drawn. Now, exhaustible resources, as we understand, so can be exhausted because so this is regenerated in a time period which is not very meaningful for mankind or human race. So, but at the same time, with exploration and technology, okay, the exhaustible resources, the stock of the exhaustible resources, I mean to say that the usable stock of the exhaustible resources can also be enhanced. Because initially, when exploration doesn't take place properly, so probably whatever is easily available that is extracted. But once we find that easily extractable resources are exhausted. The resources have to be extracted from kind of relatively difficult locations. But if technology is available, that can be easily done. So that way, in fact, exhaustible resources, the usable stock of the exhaustible resources can be extended by way of exploration and technology. Similarly, the renewable resources can also be exhausted. In fact, if we talk about the resource management, so in recent years, much of the concern or much of the discussion in literature has been concentrated around the management of renewable resources. Normally, in case of renewable resources, resources can be regenerated within a time frame which is meaningful to the human race or mankind. So they are naturally regenerated. So that is why cutting down a tree, or maybe catching fish from a lake, that doesn't carry much meaning, because ultimately we'll be in a position to have regeneration of the stock, and the stock doesn't get depleted. But the fact is that if the resource is not managed properly, if the stock goes down to a very low level, then the rate of regeneration of the stock might be a little bit difficult. So in that case, even if renewable resources can be regenerated naturally, so the stock of the renewable resources can get exhausted. But of course, that depends on how small that stock is. If the stock is not less than the threshold limit, then obviously that problem should not be there. But if it is less than the threshold limit, then obviously, even if there is a possibility of regeneration of the renewable resources, there is a scope that the renewable resource can also get exhausted. We have enough examples. We talk about deforestation. We talk about grazing land being exhausted. So these things are actually examples of kind of use of the resources by mankind in a way in which the resource kind of recharging or maybe regeneration may not be possible. So you see, this normally what happens, you see, so man is considered to be a superior animal. It's a social animal. So it has a lot of means to make use of the resources in the environment. But the fact is that, so there are so many other living being in the living spaces in the earth. Okay, so those things are also those spaces are also to be given attention to. Now, if normally what happens, these biological species, some of the biological species may not be having kind of market value as such. So they may not be commercially extractable or valuable. Now, if biological resources are commercial, biological species become commercially valuable, so what happens? On the one hand, the value of the species to humans, because if it is commercially viable or commercially valuable, so the people can extract value out of that. So obviously there will be a concern, or there will be a kind of a cause of preservation of the resource. So that will be a concern about the future of the resource. But at the same time, commercially exploitable biological resources, if they are not managed properly, so there might be kind of a destruction of the resource, the way we have seen in the case of Madagascar. So that is there in the case of many other natural rich economies or countries in the world. So that might also be pushed to the brink of extinction if not managed sensibly. So in the case of, so I have already circulated one write-up on this natural resources. So you can go through that. So that gives you some idea, or maybe analysis of how it can be managed over a period of time. In the case of biological resources, the size of the resource is important, and that is determined jointly by biological factor and by the human intervention. Now, yes.
Sir, are you sharing the screen?
Okay, I forgot. Let me share the screen. That will be better for you. Thank you. Just a minute.
Thank you, sir.
Is it coming now?
Yes, sir.
So, insofar as this biological dimension is concerned, what we normally find is we try to find out the kind of growth of the resources over a period of time, because the growth actually decides the stock of the resource. So you can have a look at one diagram which is given over here. So this diagram actually portrays the relationship between time period and the resource stock. Okay. Now, so this is actually giving you kind of population dynamics. Population dynamics. Actually, what we are trying over here is for understanding the issues of renewable resources. We are trying to take a case, and that case is our of fisheries as of now. We'll try to have a look at maybe other renewable resources like forest as well as groundwater. We'll try to have a look at that a little bit later. But in today's case, let's have a look at the fish as a renewable biological resource. If you look at this one, so you find that on the right hand side, on x-axis you find time, and on y-axis you find the resource stock. Now this line, no, actually there are two parallel lines. One is actually x min, and the other one is xc. Now what we are finding out is that you see that there is a growth curve. So this growth curve of fishery is starting from x min, not from the point of origin. Point of origin basically means that there is no resource stock in a sense. But as you can see, if there is no resource stock, the resource is already exhausted. If there is nothing there, then obviously you cannot regenerate the resource. So that's why what we try to assume is that the resource will be starting, means already a minimum amount of resource is already available, and from that there will be growth. Now, in case of biological resources like fish, the size of the resource stock is determined jointly by the biological factors and by human actions. At the same time, the size of the population also determines the availability of the resources for the future. So in that sense, what we can say, this flow of these resources is not a purely natural phenomenon, because there will be human intervention also involved in the process. So obviously, what we need to know is that so what will be the optimal use of the resource? So how to make best use of the resources so that the resource stock can be maintained perpetually. Another question probably will be in the form of the market. So whether it should be left to the market, or whether there should be some kind of intervention to ensure that resource grows and resource stock is maintained over a period of time. So to know that, actually we have tried to see this, and this is a kind of discussion of the biological dimensions in the form of growth curves. So where we find that you see the resource has grown from the stock level of x min, and it has gone up to the level of xc, which can be considered as the kind of resources carrying capacity of the environment carrying capacity. Now here, so when the size of the stock of the resource is relatively low, when we talk about x min, the stock is low. The rate of growth, because the availability of food and oxygen, that might be relatively more. So in that case, the rate of growth of the resource will be relatively higher. So it increases, it grows, and it reaches a point. Probably xc is the point, the maximum that the resource can grow, and resource stock will be limited at xc. Now this xc is considered to be the carrying capacity of the this resource for this particular species, when we are not talking about this human intervention. So, so this x min is the critical minimum level of population. So if you look at, you will find that one line is going below, actually from x min, one is going upwards, the other one is going downwards. The upward is talking about the positive growth. The other one, the other, which is actually going downwards, that is talking about the resource stock being depleted. Maybe in a sense you can say the growth rate becoming negative. or maybe growth rate is lower, as a result of which, okay, the movement is okay. So the resource might go to X naught or something like that. X naught is the kind of zero stock, in a sense you can say so. So if the resource falls below a particular threshold level, so then there is a possibility that resource will be extinct. So another thing, let's have a look at. So this is another diagram actually, which actually talks about two things. One is the growth and the other one is the resource stock. Now here, if we look at, you see, so there is a curve which is starting from 0, touching x mean at the x-axis. It increases to a maximum point, which is given as the xm, corresponding to the resource stock of xm, and then ultimately it goes to xc. It goes to xc. So here on the x-axis we find the resource stock, and on the y-axis we find the growth of the resources over a period of time. Okay. So this growth, basically we are talking about growth is measured as the net annual increment of the population. Net annual increment means you can say birth minus death. So that might be the net growth to the stock level. So all the values in the y-axis will represent that one. So left to the nature and in the absence of human predation, then xc is the population level that will prevail. xc is the population level that will prevail, and this xc is known as the natural equilibrium, because at xc the stock is just replacing itself. Okay, so that is one thing. So at xc the stock is just replacing itself. See, at xc growth rate is 0, growth rate of the resource is 0, but towards the left hand side of xc the growth rate is positive, but towards the right hand side of xc the growth rate will be negative. So in that sense, reduction in the stock because of mortality or predator species or out migration, so that would be exactly offset by increase in the stock because of birds, growth of the resource in the remaining stock, or maybe due to in-migration. So this natural equilibrium position, which is given as xc, so that is a stable one, and that will persist, because we find that there will not be much of a change out there. So if somehow the stock, okay, if growth becomes negative, then obviously, okay, again stock will come down to the level of xc, and if okay, somehow stock is towards the left hand side of xc, then what will happen? There will be certain positive growth. That positive growth will push the stock level up to xc. Because if you look at, for example, x1 is 1 point, actually one stock level. So if the stock falls to x1, what happens? There is a positive growth here, and that positive growth is given as gx1, right? So in the first year, the stock will increase by gx1. In the next year, the stock will be the stock will be x1 plus gx1, and it will grow by less than gx1. So in a sense, so what will happen? It will add to the already existing stock. Although we are saying that x1 will be the stock, so that will be added up by the growth of the resource, and the growth, of course, will be lesser and lesser till it reaches the point of xc. So in a sense, what we can say that this xc will be a stable equilibrium point. Similarly, in the case of the stock exceeding xc, so which is the carrying capacity out there, so there will be out migration, there will be mortality. So as a result of which the stock again gets reduced and it will settle down at the level of xc. The other thing is x min, which is actually described here in the diagram. So this is known as the minimum viable population. It represents the level of population below which growth in population is negative. That is shown 0 to x min, the growth rate is shown to be negative. So if the growth rate is negative, then obviously it will not add to the already existing stock. That is not possible. So in that case, there is a possibility that the resource gets exhausted. And also this equilibrium may not be a stable equilibrium. Okay, so once the stock moves away from XMIN, in the case of XC, if the stock moves away from XC, so it might be less than XC or it might be more than XC. Ultimately, there is a tendency in the system to get the resource stock back to XC. But in case of XMIN, that is not there. So once the resource stock gets reduced beyond XMIN towards the left-hand side, there is no natural force which will actually make sure that the resource will again come back to the level of XMIN, which is the minimum viable population. So that is why we term this XMIN point to be unstable equilibrium position. Now, another issue we talk about is the growth rate, it's the stock, and the second thing is the extraction. In the case of fish, we can talk about catch or maybe yield. If the rate of catch or rate of yield is equal to the growth of the stock, we define that position to be sustainable yield. Okay, so in the case of, for example, in the case of X1, for example, X1 is the stock here, the GX1 is the growth rate, and so that can be considered as sustainable yield if GX1 amount of the resource is being extracted. So when the growth rate is just equivalent to the catch level or yield level of the fish, or maybe this natural resource or maybe renewable natural resource, then we can term this to be the sustainable yield. And this sustainable yield, so you see all these actually points can be sustainable yield out here. The entire curve can show different points of sustainable yield, and one of them probably can be considered to be the maximum sustainable yield, which is given as GXM. So MSY is equivalent to GXM. What is that GXM? So that represents the maximum amount of extraction of the resources at a particular period of time. So if we talk about fish, for example, the maximum that we can catch without affecting the stock of the resource probably will be equivalent to GXM, because that is the growth rate of the fish species out here. Now, if the growth rate is just equivalent to yield rate, in essence, yield rate, or you can say catch, so then the stock is not reducing, stock is replacing itself. So in that case, it will be a sustainable yield. But since out of many sustainable yield points, it is the maximum point, so that's why we consider this is the maximum sustainable yield point. Now, this concept of MSY, which is given as equivalent to GXM, the growth rate of the resource at point M, for example. So that is relevant in the sense that, okay, so this tells us how much maximum we can catch without reducing, without ensuring, or without actually resulting in a reduction of the resource stock at a particular point of time. If it so happens that this GXM happens maybe after 10 years, probably in 10 years, the maximum amount that we can extract from the resource stock might be GXM. So in that sense, okay, so this will be relevant that we can target for this much of maximum amount of extraction based on the growth rate of the resource. So that way, in fact, the concept of maximum sustainable yield gives some idea about how to extract the resource in a particular period. So this was regarding the sustainable yield. But when we talk about economics, there are certain other issues which you need to look into. You see, sustainability is one thing, no doubt, but at the same time, there will be issues of efficiency. Normally, when we talk about efficient extraction of the resource or maybe efficient allocation of the resource, we need to try to find out the net benefits or maximization of the net benefits. These benefits are normally, benefit curve is there. So if there is some kind of effort or maybe some kind of labor employed in the process, so there will be some kind of yield function. So that yield function might be there at the same time, since there will be, this is basically production. In the process of production, there will be some kind of cost involved. So benefit curve and cost curve. So these two things are taken. And the difference between the benefit and cost curve, if we can find out. So that is the net benefit. Now, for any production activities, so there should be some kind of net benefits, obviously, for the producer to be in a position to produce that resource or produce the product. But the fact is that in the case of efficiency, we try to find out the point at which the net benefits are the maximum. So we have to find out a catch level or yield level which maximizes the net benefits. Net benefits basically means the difference between the benefit curve or revenue curve and the cost of production. So we'll try to incorporate this out here. Now, to understand that, actually, what we have tried to find out is, you see, when you talk about efficiency, there are two things. One is static efficiency thing, and the other one is the dynamic efficiency thing. In the case of dynamic efficiency, actually, this discounting that we discussed in the case of non-renewable resources, that discounting becomes important. But discounting also becomes a little bit complex because we have to bring in a lot of dimensions out there. So for the time being, what we have tried to find out is to look into the issues from the point of view of static efficiency. So for that, we have a few assumptions out here. So what we are assuming is that the fish catch or the resource means in fact extraction of the fish. So that is dependent on certain effort or maybe kind of labor of the people out there. Okay, so that is important. So the generation of or maybe kind of fish yield or fish catch will be dependent on the effort level, and also the price of the fish or the resource is considered to be constant over a period of time. Some assumptions are given. For example, we're considering the resource price to be constant. We are considering the marginal cost of fishing effort to be constant. Marginal cost of fishing effort. So when you put in effort, then obviously there is a cost. Actually, in a sense, if laborers are engaged in the process, then they are to be remunerated, and that is a cost in a sense. So that marginal cost, the additional cost of engaging one extra unit of labor is considered to be, in a sense, the effort actually here, it is considered to be effort. Marginal cost of fishing effort. So you put in some hours of effort. So you might be engaged in 5 hours. So that is your 5 hours of effort. So marginal cost of fishing effort is considered to be constant. Okay. And the third one, which is very important, is that the amount of harvest per unit of fishing effort. So that is proportional to the size of the resource stock. That means if amount of harvest is given as Y and the stock is equivalent to X and the fishing effort is given as E. So in that case, you can write Y, the catch, okay, or harvest being equivalent to E into X. So in a sense, we can say the smaller the fish population, the fewer the fish caught per unit of the effort. So these are some of the assumptions that we can have. So this is the diagram. Probably you can understand this diagram. Efficient effect growth equilibrium. So where on the y-axis you have the growth in essence gx, and also you can say harvest. Harvest is given represented as y. Then in the x-axis you have the stock, resource stock. So that is given in the form of. So here you see this x0 and xc. So these are certain actually xc is obviously the one which we are talking about, the carrying capacity of the stock at the natural equilibrium level. So that is xc actually, we are talking about that. And the minimum we are talking about xmin. But here for our convenience, we are assuming that this x0 and xmin. So these are the same out here. Okay, so we have tried to keep the diagram simple. We are assuming that xmin is equivalent to x0. Now the choice of E will determine the equilibrium harvest Y and the stock level X. Choice of E, how much of effort we are putting in, that will decide how much of harvest there will be, because, and of course X is also there. What is the stock at that level? So that will decide how much of harvest will there be, because E is given as Y is given as EX. So E1 will have a harvest equivalent to E1X. So that is corresponding to probably X star amount of the stock. Corresponding to X star amount of stock, if the effort level is decided to be E1, then E1X will represent the harvest of the resource stock. Okay. Any harvest, you see, so harvest is given as, suppose here Y star. Any harvest level above Y star along the line E1X will mean that the harvest is greater than the sustainable yield Y star, and the stock will decline to the level of X star. Similarly, a harvest level below Y star, so if you harvest at lesser rate actually, so in that case, that harvest level will be less than the yield through natural regeneration. So in that case, what will happen? Because we're again, the growth will be positive, natural regeneration is higher, uh, harvest rate is lower, then obviously there will be net addition to the stock and it will go to extra level. Okay. But this Y star, which we are saying that this might be the sustainable yield kind of a thing, sustainable harvest, you can say so, but this is not the maximum sustainable yield. But of course, as we said, that the effort level can be different. So by manipulating the value of E, you can always have a kind of harvest which is equivalent to EMX, which goes through YM, and that is the maximum sustainability that we can always find out. That's possible. Is it okay, or you have any issue out here? So what we have done here, we have tried to incorporate the effort level. Of course, effort level will help us in identifying our kind of sustainable level of harvest. But of course, for understanding the issue of efficiency or efficient amount of efficient sustainable yield, for example, so probably we have to bring in the concept of cost and benefit into the picture. So we have to try to do that. Of course, for that again, actually, at some point of time, there is an effort to relate this effort level with harvest level. So if that is done, things are a little bit different. The diagram will be something like this. So effort yield function, where yield is on the y-axis, then effort is in the x-axis. Okay, so that's given out there. So not necessarily that will always be required. But the fact is that if we have to bring in efficiency thing, so we have to talk about this maximization of net benefits. So if we have to maximize the net benefit values, then obviously we have to actually define the revenue function or maybe kind of benefit function. So here, what we can do, the price is considered to be constant. So in that case, we can define the revenue or maybe revenue from the harvest as equivalent to price multiplied by the catch. So in that case, R will be the total revenue which can be earned from catching fish, that is given as P into Y. And the revenue function is shown over here. This is the revenue function. Okay, so this E0 to Emax, so that line will give us the revenue curve. So this is the benefit curve in essence, R is equal to P into Y. Now cost, we have already assumed the cost. In essence, cost will be proportional to the effort, fishing effort in essence. The marginal cost is considered to be constant. Okay, so that's why it will not vary. So C is the total cost. That total cost is given as small c multiplied by E. So we have the cost curve, we have the benefit curve. At different effort levels, we can find out the net benefit by deducting the cost function from the revenue function. So here, actually the idea is to maximize the net benefit. And how to maximize the net benefit? If we go to EM, for example, EM is the that gives us the maximum sustainable yield kind of a thing. So maximum sustainable, this maximum benefit we can get from there. But at the same time, this cost curve is also a positively sloped one. So that means with higher revenues, the cost will also go up. So that doesn't necessarily give us the maximum net benefits out there. The difference between the revenue function, revenue curve, and the cost function or maybe cost curve, so that may not necessarily be the maximum at EM point. So that is not. So what we can find in this case is that this EE, capital E, small e, so that point decides or maybe gives us the kind of efficient level of effort. Efficient level of effort will be equivalent to EE because the vertical difference or vertical distance between the revenue curve or revenue function and the cost function at that point will be the maximum. Okay. Of course, from the always you can mathematically derive this point. That is possible. You can find out the condition. The condition for maximum net benefit will be given by equality in the slope of the revenue function and the cost function. So here, the tangent, if the tangent is drawn at point, suppose RE in the revenue curve, for example, not at point RE, so that point which is corresponding to REE. So the tangent drawn there and the slope of the cost curve, which is given as C is equal to CE, so that should be parallel. In essence, you can say that the kind of first differentiation of the revenue curve should be, or derivative of the revenue curve with reference to effort level should be equivalent to the derivative of or slope of the cost curve at point E. So that will give us the maximum net benefits, and if that is the maximum net benefits, we can say that this is the this will give us the efficient level of effort, and that will give us the efficient level of yield. Okay, so we can find out actually. So effort and yield. So from the previous function, definitely we can find out. So how much will be the efficient yield. Now here, as you can see, there is a question. So whether MSY is efficient or not. Already I told you, no, MSY may not be necessarily efficient because at EM point, okay, the marginal cost has to be equal to the marginal benefit. At MSY level, the marginal benefit is equivalent to 0. Okay, so normally that is not the case. So that's why the efficient level of effort is less than that necessary to harvest the maximum sustainable yield, which is given by the point, by the effort level of EM. Okay, so that's why the conclusion is that the static efficient level of effort leads to a larger resource stock than does the MSY yield level of effort, and maximum sustainable yield doesn't appear to be a socially desirable objective to strive for. So if we talk about efficiency issues, it's not necessary that we should target only the maximum sustainable yield, because that may not be the most efficient. It may not maximize the net benefits. Okay, the distance between the revenue and the cost, that may not be the maximum over here. So it's not necessary that it is a socially desirable objective which should be thought about, and people should try about that. Not necessarily. So this way, in fact, this is the efficient level. Efficiency can be achieved at that point. But of course, there are certain things which you need to look into. For example, fishery we are talking about. Fishery is, although we are saying that efficient amount of resources or efficient extraction of the resources, efficient level of yield we are interested in. But the fact is that there are certain other issues in which actually decide how much of the resource will be extracted, what will be the catch level, or what will be the yield level of the resource. In case of fishery, in case of grazing land, in case of forestry, many a time the problem is with reference to the ownership rights over the resource. Okay, in the case of all these natural resources, basically renewable resources, what we find is that there is a kind of exclusion of use, excluding somebody from making use of the resource. That is extremely difficult, because the property rights are not properly defined over here. So for example, like grazing land, who owns the grazing land? If it belongs to a private person, then obviously so he can make use of the resource. But if it doesn't belong to a private person, it might belong to everybody. So if it belongs to anybody and everybody, it becomes an open access. Since anybody or everybody can make use of the resource. So that might happen with fishery also. If the fishery is not controlled or owned by any single individual, or maybe a single entity, or maybe a kind of group of people, then it might so happen that nobody can be prevented from making use of the fishery or pond or lake. So in that case, the people will try to derive the maximum benefits as early as possible. It's a kind of first come first serve kind of a thing, first come first gain kind of a thing. So they will not look into whether others are getting benefits out of that. Their obvious objective will to maximize their own individual benefit. So that way, in fact, what we come to know of a situation, this situation is a kind of related with the open access resources. Mostly it is the case in case of common pool resources. In the case of common pool resources, it's available in the environment, it's available in common for everybody or anybody. So in those situations, unless the property rights are properly earmarked, it will be difficult to exclude anybody from making use of the resource. And as a result of which, the resource gets degraded too soon. And that is the issue of situation of tragedy of commons. So in tragedy of commons, actually, we can have a detailed discussion on tragedy of commons. And in fact, many a time game theory can be made use of for explaining the tragedy of commons. I'll be sending you a write-up which you can have a look into. And also the write-up which was already circulated, the basic write-up on different issues of environment, the basic thing, introduction to environmental economics, you can have a look into that. So they also try to find out tragedy of commons with the help of game theory that you can have a look into. So that is the thing. We'll try to have this discussion on this tragedy of commons and open access resources separately. I'll try to send you some materials on that so that you can have a look into that. So many a time people believe that these type of natural resources which are available in common, so they can be better utilized when you have a kind of common property resources. Common property resources, in essence, we can say that somebody, some groups of community or some communities might be given the responsibility of managing the resource. Otherwise, in the case of open access resources, as you know, anybody can make use of the resource, and while making use of the resource, how much of the resource will be made use of. So they will take into account their individual cost of using the resource and individual benefits. Okay, so but the fact is that most of these resources will be rival in consumption. If I use something, that amount will not be available in future for anybody else. So that resource is reduced by that much of amount. So we take into account only the personal benefit and personal kind of cost, not the cost which might be there for the society at large. So as a result of that, there is a tendency for the resource being degraded too soon. Okay, so that we'll have a look into. But many a time people believe that in the case of this tragedy of commons kind of a thing, probably if it is handed, the property rights are handed over to individuals, probably things will be different. This is, for example, a fishery, a common land or grazing land or kind of forest, so those type of things. But the fact is that there are issues there also in the case of developing countries particularly. So where many people have to depend on the environment for their basic day-to-day life or basic requirements of day-to-day life, then if private property rights are enforced, then these people who are dependent on the environment, so they will be deprived of certain basic facilities or basic amenities. So that is what actually makes the things a little bit complicated. Although technically private property rights regime may serve better, but considering the fact that a lot of resource poor people have to rely on the environmental resources, maybe forest, maybe fishery, and so many other things, the kind of decision to hand over these resources to any individual or private individual or maybe organization may not be prudent, as because this will kind of make the already vulnerable more vulnerable. And that is the case with mostly with the developing countries where people are resource poor and they have to depend upon many common pool resources for their basic needs of life. Okay, so that's why we find that a lot of forest villages are there. It's not that all of them are revenue villages. Many of them are forest villages. Basically, they live in the forest areas. So there is a concept, of course, that was introduced way back by Government of India in 80s itself. That was, so they tried to give a kind of go for a kind of joint forest management kind of a concept. So wherein the government entrusts the responsibility of managing the forest resources to a group of people who might be living nearby, and they will also be having the rights over some of the resources in the forest. At the same time, they are also responsible for managing the resource and making it available for a longer period of time. That's there. Poverty and environment is always a big issue. Many people believe that because of the poor people, the resource gets degraded, but some other people believe that it's not the case. The poor people are so poor, so vulnerable that they do not have the capability and resources to extract the environmental resource in a manner which will lead to degradation of the resource itself. So that is another issue. So that is why there are a lot of arguments and counter arguments regarding this type of resources, whether this should be actually left to private individuals or whether it should be given to a group of individuals who can think about making better use of these resources. Okay, if you have any question, I can take it.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, not from this portion, but I have two doubts in quiz. Sir, one of this thing is about course theorem. So you told that in the fisherman example that you gave, that the property rights, if they are given either to the fishermen or the people who are dumping waste into the pond, it doesn't affect it. So it shouldn't be a limitation, right?
Which one?
Sir, property rights are given to either of the parties in course theorem.
Then what is the issue for you?
So sir, it shouldn't be like it shouldn't be the limitation of course theorem.
Okay, the question of on course theorem was, let me check. Which of the following are not limitations of course theorem? Okay, not, huh?
Yes, sir.
So you are saying this the resources assigned to either of the parties. You mean to say that this is a limitation?
No, sir, this is not a limitation. Even if it is assigned to any of the parties, it won't be like farmers will find a like fishermen will find a way to get cancel the externality, basically bring it to the optimum amount.
Okay, then I have to look into this. So probably in framing, so I have to find out once more. So there might be certain issues. Yes, you are correct. In a sense, property rights over the resources assigned to either of the parties. That's not the limitation. Okay, so in that case, let's see how to resolve this issue. Yeah, thanks for pointing it out. Sometimes it happens. Yeah. Anything else?
Yes, sir. There was one more thing, sir. This was more of a doubt, sir. In the exclusivity question, which is not correct about exclusivity, so the entitlements must be enforced effectively. So why is this correct?
This is not correct, no? Which of the following are correct about exclusivity characteristics of property rights, right? So correct things will be all benefits from use of the resource should accrue to the owner. The benefits of exclusivity also include benefits received by selling the resource to others. This enforcement thing will be this comprehensive assignment kind of a thing. So that is, it is part of that. Okay. Then this doesn't apply to resources held in common. Okay, so that is not the thing. That is not correct actually. It applies to the resources held in common also. So that's why I think this all benefits from use of the resource should accrue to the owner, and the benefits of exclusivity also include benefits received by selling the resource to others. So these two characteristics or these two dimensions should be correct about exclusivity characteristics of property rights.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Regarding this question that I have to look into, yes, I also have a doubt about this question now. Some mistake might have happened. I'll look into that. If that is a problem, then all of you will be getting the marks. Okay, so I'll be assigning these 2 marks to everybody. I'll have a look into that and I'll come back to you. Is that fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any
sir.
other thing that you might be having?
No, sir. These two were.
It's Amit, right?
Yes, sir.
but your photograph seems to be somebody else's, right? Very good, nice, yeah, picture. Yeah, if you don't have any question, anything, then what I'll do, I'll try to send you some of the materials to you on this open access resources and Tragedy of Commons. Just try to have a look at them tomorrow.